We're going to start now. So good morning to everybody and welcome to the Thames Valley Chamber of Commerce and today's webinar, which is going to be delivered by my member Joy Ainley from Working from Joy. She's going to be touching on equipping entrepreneurs to succeed in an uncertain world. So today's webinar is being recorded, so you can listen to it again. It will be available on the Chamber webinar library. Which is our website is www.thamesvalleychamber.co.uk, and then if you just select the webinar option, library option, you should be able to listen to it again and also share the link amongst your network. Okay, so I'm Narinda Multani. I'm account manager here at the Thames Valley Chamber of Commerce. I work quite closely with businesses in the Thames Valley and work very closely with Joy, who is my member. And I'm going to pass you over to Joy, who will start with today's webinar. And if you do have any questions for her, please post them in the chat box and she'll answer them for you towards the end. So if she wants to answer them as we go along, then that's she'll tell you when to do that. So perfect. Okay, now I'm just going to move over to the next slide. Joy, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Narinda, and hi. Yes, how's my sound? Everything all right?
Sounds all good, yes. Everybody, I hope you can hear Joy okay. Maybe just send us another hi to confirm sound is good.
Right, well, I'll plug on. Yes, Joy Ainley here, and thank you all for joining me in this video, which, like all my trainings, is to help you work at a higher level. So just a bit about me. Let me just get onto the next slide. No, there's a delay, so.
Okay, you do have.
For some reason, I'm doing. Now, why is this not working?
Okay, I can see your mouse is moving.
Have I got control?
You have, your mouse is moving. There we go.
Right, might catch up. Oh, good, great. Okay, so yes, thank you for joining me in this video, which, like all my trainings, is to help you work at a higher level. So just a bit about me. I started my career as a chartered accountant, and I'm a former city-based CFO and a former management consultant. And all of my work has been focused on designing and implementing systems to achieve strategic advantage. And about 20 years ago, I started my company Working with Joy, which allowed me to switch away from IT systems towards behavioral systems, all about how people tick and how to help them tick better. And that's even included research into autoimmune system responses and how to help people use their mind to control their disease symptoms by getting their thinking clear and under control. And in today's training, it's to help you to use your mind to help you and the people you lead to achieve better results, whether that's in your organization, your team, your department, or with your peers, or even with your children, believe it or not, if you have children, or any relationship. So one of the biggest challenges leaders face is dealing with problems, making decisions and communicating them when they don't have all the information, which is most of the time. And what I want to share with you is a simple way to create a clearly defined path, a route map, if you like, from problem to solution. Well, I'm going backwards. And so that even in the face of the many uncertainties arising every day, you can make difficult decisions more easily and communicate them more effectively. Now, the reason I'm making this video is to share with you some of the skills that they're seldom taught, but they are vital for getting skills through other people. And many leaders have really come a cropper by not exercising these skills. They might have had them, but they haven't exercised those skills. So to illustrate this, I want to take you through a case study of Stacey, a client of mine who's on my Light Touch leadership program. And in it, I'll share with you 4 different types of coaching and mentoring techniques to help you use problems as opportunities to develop your team so that they become even more valuable and they save you from sleepless nights. and it's effectively what I call emotionally intelligent leadership. And Stacey called me early one morning. She's given me permission to share this and suggested that I had actually, for help to resolve a problem that she'd been struggling with about an important, here we go, an important problem meeting that Stacey called me early one morning for help to resolve a problem she'd been struggling with about an important meeting later that day. And this case study is all about what happened on that call. So I'm going to switch my video off now so that you can just look at the screen and engage with this as opposed to being distracted by whatever I'm doing. And I will get back to my screen. So there we are, stop video, and there we are. So you can just listen and look at the screen. Now, the reason why people struggle with problems is that they try to solve the problem without really clarifying the problem. And let's just get this next slide. And so we're going to set out clarifying the problem first so that it becomes easy to derive a solution. So simplifying the problem makes it easier to solve by clarifying the problem, expressing the problem in a form to solve it more easily, and to identify the constraints and criteria to solving the problem, and then exploring the options that exist within those constraints and criteria. And then the problem is much easier to solve. So if we get on to the solution, I hope I don't get to, yeah, there's a delay here, so apologies about that. Yep. So then when you're forming the solution, it's easier because you can analyze the consequences so much easier. You can weight the outcomes from each of those consequences, and you can make the decision more clearly, more decisive, and take more decisive action. So in Stacey's case study, I'll show you 3 types of approaches in which Stacey can resolve her problem. First, I'll show you ways of using coaching and mentoring to help Stacey. Sorry about the delay. Let's miss the first one. So the first one, I'll show you ways of using coaching and mentoring to help Stacey resolve her problem. And second, I'll show you 3 problem-solving tools. And third, I'll show you 4 levels of mentoring to use with your team according to the situation to help them think at a higher level. So, and finally, I'll invite you to a special limited opportunity to help you work and think at a higher level so you can find solutions more easily and you can deliver more easily on track. So, first, who is Stacey? Stacey, as I mentioned, is a client of mine on my Light Touch Leadership Program, and she suggested I share this case study with you, which I'm very happy to do. So here goes. Stacey called me very early one morning with the dilemma I mentioned concerning her recent restructure in the way that one of her teams in her organization worked. Now, we discussed previously her planned restructure, so I asked her to bring me up to date since our last call, and this is a summary of our Q&A. So this is the background. She'd appointed Tim, a new member of her senior management team, to replace her as the head of their brilliant strategy team. And she'd recently announced his appointment. And she told me, as you know, I've been signaling and discussing this restructure and Tim's appointment with the team for some time now. So everybody knew what was going on. And they agree it's logical and it gives some more budget and greater autonomy, a bigger platform, etc. But they're obviously still unhappy with it at a personal level. She said they realise I don't have the bandwidth to be as closely involved with their work as before and to do it justice. And they agreed with Tim they'd be in excellent hands. And all in all, they totally get that it would be better. I'd have a better perspective on their ideas and be better able to champion them. But all of these arguments, they could agree them logically, but the elephant in the room was, and one of them voiced it, they said, reporting to someone less senior feels like a demotion and the vibe will change. So we get the old ego encroaching in here, all very unhelpful. So in summary, Stacey said, I'm not happy with the risk, and nothing I've come up with dispels that feeling of dread of losing the vibe, dread that they'll lose their magic and it'll be a war of their egos like it was before. And she feared that Tim would meet resistance instead of being the catalyst to spark their ideas, and that the dynamic and the culture of the team would suffer. And with it, their performance would suffer. So to help her get greater clarity, come on. Ooh. So to help her get greater clarity on her fear, I asked her what she feared would happen to the dynamic and the culture that would make their performance suffer. And after a pause, she said, well, you've helped me transform my teams from being groups of brilliant, egotistical, competitive and secretive, but totally underperforming individuals, which we've worked on for some time, into the collaborative teams that were focused away from self and towards team. And instead of this exhaustingly protective silo culture that they used to have, we've created this rare culture in which they now share knowledge, share ideas, and ask for help. And so she said, I want to see how they can embrace these core values, and instead of letting their ego creep back in, instead of feeling demoted, I want them all to thrive. I don't want Tim's arrival to damage that dynamic. So I realised, this call was first thing in the morning, and we needed to get Stacey to a decision fast. So it wasn't time for some major therapy. So I had to give her the space to continue and listen for some key realizations to emerge. So I asked her, if the team members realise the benefit of embracing those core values, how could Tim's arrival damage that dynamic? And she went on to say how she'd been beating herself up, saying, well, real leaders wouldn't struggle with this level of detail, and that if she'd created the strong culture that, I'm sorry about the delay here, if she created the strong culture that she prided herself on, they'd trust her decision to restructure and trust her to look after them. And so one part of her was saying she should grow up, stop mothering them and give them credit for being grown-ups and trust him to get on with it. But there was still that niggling underlying fear that had not surfaced. It was too important to risk. And she'd been debating how to handle introducing Tim to the team and whether to appear at Tim's first strategy meeting, the one that she was originally scheduled to chair, and if she did attend, for how long. And you can imagine she'd been wrestling with this all pretty much all night. And every approach she considered carried a risk to the dynamic, hence the early morning call. So, armed with that background, here's that call. And we've got the coaching and mentoring part with some coaching points that you can notice that I've included in blue. So I started by asking her, okay, so what do you want to be true at the end of this call? And she laughed and said, well, I know what I don't want. I don't want the restructure to damage the culture of the team. And instead of a negative, I said to her, can you present this as a positive goal? And after some thought, she said, I want the restructure to enhance the team culture. And I could hear a sense of relief that she'd expressed her problem as a positive and clear objective rather than as a fear. It's such a simple thing to do, but it's much more powerful. People tend to overlook really simple things, thinking things have got to be really complicated. So many simple coaching techniques can be very powerful and very empowering, and they shouldn't be overlooked. And having said that, simple isn't the same as easy. So it does take some practice to get into the mode of simple in order to make it easy. So I asked her, how could you use Tim's first strategy meeting to enhance the team culture? And after some thought, she said, well, by sending the right signals to Tim and the team. But I'm not sure whether attending or not would send the right signals. I can only see it going wrong. So I've asked Stacey an open question. So open questions are those which you can't answer yes and no. And the point of that is so that it didn't limit Stacey's answer in any way. And her mind is free to explore expansively the options that she can come up with. And her answer revealed lots of unhelpful what if thens complexity. So she was conflating lots of unhelpful things. So I simplified it to focus only on the objective she said she wanted to achieve. And I reflected back to Stacey the essence of what she said. Reflecting back is one of the other important things to do, to show the people that they've been heard, to get them to reflect on what they've actually said. And so I said, so you want to decide whether to attend Tim's first strategy meeting. Now it sounds so simple and so obvious, but sometimes people need to hear it back to them in order for it to make any sense or to get conscious resonance with it. So now that Stacey had a clearly articulated positive goal for this call, we can start to achieve it. The rest of Stacey's case study is an example of working through a simple problem to arrive at a decision that meets the criteria she set at the start. And it's designed to show how people learn best in the way that fits where they are at the time in their present situation, and how people resolve their problems best at the level they're equipped to receive that help, rather than if they're just fed the answer. And here's the key thing: even when one question seems the same as another, it may demand a completely different response, depending on the whole set of criteria. So let's have a look at just some of those learning criteria that we have to match with the people that we're mentoring if we want that mentoring to be effective. And the first thing is we have to understand the reason behind their question. And the second one is we have to understand their level of experience so that what we're telling them doesn't go over their head. It has to meet their knowledge of the subject, their relevant skill set. So it's no good telling somebody to ride a bike if they can't even walk. And we have to adjust for their particular talents, leverage their talents, whatever those talents are, and in order to strengthen whatever weaknesses they have. And another important aspect is the context of the problem, which I've got a funny story that will make that clear. However, there's one other vital criterion that it's too complicated to go into now, and that's state of mind. That's really important because some people are so in the rabbit in the headlights mode that even though they might be mega intelligent and super talented at that moment, they just can't deal with it. So you have to match their state of mind. So we have to bear in mind, we'll take the shortcut and bear in mind that Stacey is stressed and she's had no sleep. So we have to make sure we're pacing how she can take on this information. So here's that lovely old joke to illustrate a little example of a mismatched response to a learning situation. So it goes, 6-year-old Emma asked her mother, "Mummy, where do I come from?" And Stacey, and she said, "Oh, Katie, oh, bugger, sorry." No, nothing like delivering the punchline before we got to the end. And a mum who'd kind of been expecting this question went into the whole reproduction thing as Emma listened patiently. And at the end, Katie looked rather bemused and I have completely messed this up.
Is it a delay? It's probably just a delay on your end.
That's very kind, but no, it's me. I completely screwed it up. However, right, shall I start again? 6-year-old Emma asked Mummy, where do I come from? And a mum who'd been expecting this went into the whole reproduction thing as Emma listened patiently. And at the end, she looked rather bemused and said, "Oh, Katie said she came from Birmingham and skipped off to play." Well, okay. To be effective, help needs to be matched to the needs in that moment, in that situation. Learning builds on learning and understanding builds on understanding. And I love this quote. Newton famously said, "If I have seen further, it's by standing on the shoulders of giants." And we develop by standing on the shoulders of our former selves. And the more we learn, the more that we can learn. And so when we're mentoring others, it's our job to meet them where they are, to help them at the level that gets them to the best solution their shoulders are able to handle in that moment the quickest. And it's not a one size fits all. So how do we know what's the right level of learning for that moment? Well, this example may help. To keep it simple, we're just going to do 4 levels of learning, and it's from lower to higher, and it's basic and low level first. And then I'll show you how to apply it to Stacey's request for advice. And I hope you find it useful. So here's Stacey's case study using the 4 levels of learning. Remember, Stacey expressed her goal as I want the restructure to enhance the team culture. So her dilemma became, I want to decide whether to attend Tim's first strategy meeting. So I need to help Stacey craft a message which helps her send powerful signals to each of the 3 parties, to Stacey herself, to Tim, and to the strategy team. And these signals have to meet Stacey's goal of ensuring the restructure enhances the culture of the team. So here's an illustration of 4 different ways of mentoring to achieve that goal using 4 levels of learning from basic to subtle. And level 1 mentoring, which I think of as for emergency use only, this is real rabbit in the headlight stuff, but it's really tempting to use more often for speed, when you're anxious for them to get to a problem because there's a deadline looming, but really it is only for emergencies. And that is just to give Stacey an answer. So that's when there's no opportunity for learning. So in answer to Stacey's question, this level would be a yes or no, followed by an explanation, so an opinion, in other words. So we're trying to avoid that, because not only does it mean that you're taking responsibility away from Stacey, and you're wasting your time and energy and brain power when she should be using hers, you're also depriving Stacey of a potential learning experience. And it limits your learning experience as a mentor as well, because you're not mentoring, you're just feeding them the answers. So most importantly, and this is a key point to understand about the way we learn, if Stacey is just listening to somebody else's answer, it isn't challenging her brain much. And if it isn't challenging her brain much, then she's not building any neural pathways. There's no space for her to create some learning. So I'm just going to pause now. I'm just going to pause just to see if there are any questions that I can answer.
Joy, shall I ask a question?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay, so how do we accept customer wants and needs to change in this current situation of COVID-19?
Customer needs are something that should be on companies' radar all the time. And this situation is just a more extreme version of that. And basically, the customer needs will change as a response to what they can and can't do. So if we look at the change in their physical behavior, there will be more online access. People who would go and buy things in the high street will now deliver in more or less the old frontiersman Sears catalogue era. Everything will be bought online so far as it can be. So I'm afraid one of the aspects there will be a decline of the high street. There will be other permanent changes that companies have to respond to. So I think in order to look at what customers want. We need to look at the changes in the things that they can do and the things that they can't do and the things that they want to adapt to the lifestyle that they're being forced into or want to pursue. So probably, does that answer your question?
Perfect, thank you. If anybody else has got any questions, please just post them in the chat box and Joy will answer those accordingly. So just to remind you again, this webinar is being recorded and you can listen to it again via the Chamber webinar library, and you can share the link amongst your network. So great. Thank you. Joy, back over to you.
Thank you. It is very compressed, so that your point is very good, Narinda, about it being recorded. So back to Stacey. So if we feed her the answer, her answer just won't. The answer will not allow her to learn about how to derive answers for herself. So to offer a bit better learning experience, we'll go to the next level, which is asking questions of Stacey. In other words, to get Stacey to challenge herself. So for example, asking Stacey, what could happen by attending or not attending the meeting, looking at the consequences? What might not happen if she either attends or doesn't attend? And what might be the pros and cons of those consequences? And how important are they, let's say on a scale of 1 to 10? And the learning that happens at this level in the space Stacey's given to form the ideas as she processes the question is giving her space for growth. But the scope for Stacey to learn more at the next level. The level 3 mentoring, which is to introduce Stacey to a tool that equips her to derive her own solution. And a tool that we can offer Stacey in this case is a simple 4x4 matrix of questions that I asked Stacey in that previous level 2, like this. 4 questions. Remember the 2 scenarios we asked Stacey about? Right, well, we've got questions for every box, 1, 2, 3, 4. And those scenarios were, what if Stacey does attend the meeting? The scenario where she doesn't attend the meeting. And for each of those 2 scenarios, we've explored 2 sets of possible outcomes shown as column headings. One is what could happen if she does or doesn't attend. That could be positive or negative. And what couldn't happen if she does or doesn't attend. That could be positive or negative. So we get what could happen if she does, what could happen if she doesn't, what couldn't happen if she does, and what couldn't happen if she doesn't. So that's a formulaic way of setting out a problem clearly so that you think through all of the options instead of rushing to the solution and getting everything mixed up. And then for each of those outcomes, we can look at weighting the pros and cons. So there are there's a number of reasons why. Ooh, that's interesting. What's going on there? Okay, there are a number of reasons why that gets better results than the simple pros and cons. And you can make this as simple or exhaustive a process as you like, which combines all sorts of other features. But I'm just showing the basics now because it's a really valuable tool to help solve problems. And come on now, play ball. But what I've found, there we go, from decades of mentoring is that even at its most basic level, this tool can generate a level of clarity and expansive thinking that can shift people from feeling powerless to feeling in control. And this is what Stacey needed right then, because she needed to come from rabbits in the headlights to feeling in control. But this is not a video about tools. It's about an example of using tools. So there we go. So you can make use of this tool yourself. Okay, so quick pause for a question.
So, Joy, another question from me. Do you find that sometimes that uncertainty isn't always a problem and it can be the solution, which is the problem?
Yes, this is. I don't know if you've read the research by McKinsey. Are I think it's about a 70% failure rate in digital transformation initiatives, and the reasons that were cited for those failures are several. I think it was about 12 key ones that they found were the reasons,
Mm.
and a lot of them are about not getting the assumptions wrong, not relying on assumptions, and not really understanding what it is that they're doing, not getting the strategy clear enough of what it is that they're trying to achieve at the outset, and getting confused in the middle about where they're headed or getting distracted. And so agility and flexibility and proactivity are very, very important. And it's really like a probability distribution. At one end, my clients, I'm happy to say, they're very agile and proactive, and they make changes and um, and look for changes in customer demands, the way that people want to transact with them. They try and look through the customer's needs to their customers' needs so that they can respond. And so we are seeing extremes of behavior, I think, in the economy in general. Those people who throw up their hands and say, there's nothing I can do. And at the other end, where people are being extremely proactive and taking advantage of the situation in a way by empowering their customers to survive or even thrive during this kind of crisis. Does that answer your question?
Yes, perfect. Thank you. Anybody else got any questions? We've got the chat box there, so you can post your questions to Joy,
Thank
or you
you.
can always ask them towards the end. We will give you Joy's contact details so you can, or a link to her website so you can contact her via that. So yeah, back over to you, Joy.
Thank you very much. Right, so sorry about the delay, folks. Come on. Right, so we're going to use Stacey's case study as a worked example of that box 4 of the matrix that I just mentioned. And the reason for that is that box 4 is the one that people find the most challenging, but it is generally the one that is the most useful, weird as though that may sound. So just to recap, the question to Stacey was, what couldn't happen if you don't attend? And then we'll weight the pros and cons of the consequences. What couldn't happen if I don't attend, she reflected. So after a pause, she added, as though a light had gone on in her mind, well, I couldn't interfere, the team couldn't feel inhibited by me being there, and I couldn't get dragged into the detail. And you could probably tell the lighter note as she got into this kind of thinking, because she was out of the headlights and into resourceful and solution mode. And she continued on, I couldn't interfere, I couldn't big up the team in front of the team. So that was really important. She couldn't take that as an opportunity to tell each other how brilliant they were. And she couldn't frame the restructure as a vote of confidence in their maturity. And when she'd run out of outcomes, I asked her, so to summarize, so I got her to summarize, what benefits wouldn't you gain if you don't attend, and what opportunities would you lose if you don't attend? So these were these questions all to get her into a resourceful mode. And she now had a smile in her voice as she answered. My reasons for not attending were all based on fear. And now I'm clear about what needs to happen, that fear has gone away. And if I don't attend and hand over properly, I'm not being a leader. You see how she's out of this spot, out of the headlights and into resourceful. So I need to be a leader, and I need to address the fear the team have expressed, because the opposite is true. They're not demoted. The team is a diamond, and she needed to recognize that, and that was one of the aha moments. And sounding increasingly confident, Stacey concluded, "It's now clear I have to attend." So the next question is, how do I craft the introduction? Because she's taken over her own questions now. How do I craft the introduction to meet the criteria of enhancing the team culture and their performance? So, counterintuitive, this last most obscure and unlikely question in the matrix was, what couldn't happen if you don't attend? So how weird is that? But there you are, that's the most productive. So that last question, as for all of the other questions, is designed to stimulate ideas and to get into expansive thinking, out of silo thinking, into expansive thinking. And those were the most important ideas that she generated. So by exploring the wider potential consequences, Stacey engaged more of her mind's ingenuity within the constraints set. Now, remember, Stacey had expressed those constraints generically as maximizing the opportunity while minimizing the risk to its dynamic. So I hope that's making sense. That's level 3 covered, showing Stacey a tool to help her make a decision. So the third level is showing her a tool. The second level was actually using the tool to help her get the answer. All right, is this making sense?
Yes, great, thank you.
Okay, good. Right, so, we're not done yet. We still have level 4, which might surprise you. This is a bit woolly, not woolly, it's definitely not woolly. It is woo-woo, that's why. It might sound rather weird, but bear with me. So, level 4 is to help Stacey create a resourceful state of mind, allowing her the space for a higher level solution to emerge. Now, this has happened increasingly as we've gone from basic level to the present level. And we saw it a bit in that last one, but this is more of an art form and requires a light touch, and where less is definitely more. Now, I bet you've experienced this final level of relaxed, resourceful state of mind in many different situations naturally, like waking up in the night with the most brilliant idea, or those moments just as you're becoming awake or drifting into sleep, or when you're in the shower, or even wandering off into your own creative imagination with an idea triggered by the presentation you're watching. But how do you create this relaxed, resourceful state of mind on purpose? Because that's the tricky part. Now, this story may help. Now, in my teenage years, my sanity, and this is no exaggeration, my sanity was saved by a man who continued to be a great mentor to me for the rest of his life. And when I was struggling with a really tough problem, I'd ring him to talk it through. But over the decades, he would increasingly monopolize the entire conversation with whatever he was philosophizing on at the time, so that after an initial hello, I wouldn't get a word in to ask him about my problem. So I just got into the habit of letting go of my frustration and allowing myself just to relax and be open to sharing his reality. It was hypnotic. And therein lies the magic. He was in an expansive state of thinking first. Even though his words were on a completely different topic, they were at such an expansive level that they triggered that relaxed, resourceful state of mind that allowed me the space to expand my thinking and to find a higher level of solution to my problem. And this is a great example of the highest form of mentoring. To create that state in someone else, you have to be there first. Over almost 2 decades, I searched for effective ways to do this so I can teach leaders how to create this space for themselves and for the people they lead. And I've distilled its essence from many disciplines, from psychotherapy and hypnotherapy to neuroscience and behavioral psychology, all of which point to less being more, less intervention and more guiding. And a vital part of my role and the role of any mentor is to help people access that relaxed state of mind where they're the most creative and resourceful, and to hold that space for them to trigger their own solutions. And when we facilitate that space, we help unleash the real potential. So level 4 is to show you how to help Stacey create a resourceful state of mind, allowing her the space to create a higher level solution. Now, remember how early in our conversation, I'd helped Stacey get clear about what her core values were and what was important to her about the way that the team worked together in the future. And those core values were the backdrop for her vision for her team, as she was asked the questions in the previous level, level 3, and allowed the space to process her solution. So in level 3, we saw that Stacey realized that fear had made her powerless, and how being clear about the message she needed to send to the team needed to meet the criteria that gave the confidence for her to craft that message. So armed with Stacey's criteria, which were for the restructure of the team to enhance its performance, minimizing the risk of them feeling demoted, and maximizing the opportunity for great ideas, in level 4, we'll use that resourceful state of mind to help Stacey craft a powerful message that'll make her vision happen. So here goes. Remember, Stacey had answered question box 4 with she needed to send her own message, and she posed her own question: how do I craft the introduction to meet my criteria of enhancing the team culture and their performance? Now, I kept quiet for 4 reasons. That she had all the information she needed to get her to the next stage. And in this state, it needed to be her message. So getting her to a state where that wisdom would just flow out was what I needed to get her to do. And that I knew that she would originate exactly what she needed to say. And she needed to know that she created this message herself. I didn't do it for her. She needed to know she'd done it. So she felt like the leader she needed to be. She had the confidence that she could create the right leadership messages in the future. And more importantly, from the beginning of the call, as the call progressed, I could tell that she'd become increasingly internally focused, which again helps to generate that internal resourceful state of mind, and that being quiet allows to intensify, and with it, that it allows that resourceful state to deepen. And sure enough, the message had formed in her mind, and she started to speak in one continuous relaxed flow. Now, this was without hesitation and without correction, and this is a transcript that I sent to her afterwards, which she was happy to share with you. And as I read it, I'm going to share the signals that Stacey builds into her message to demonstrate how Tim's appointment strengthens the culture that they created, and what advantages Tim's appointment gives them, and the responsibility they need to live up to. Okay, so here goes. As an organization, we're incredibly lucky to have someone as talented as Tim on our management team. His ability to facilitate our ideas has already proven invaluable in helping us grow at an incredible rate and in a controlled way in the past 2 years. Since you, our brilliant set of ideas people, have now matured into the superb strategy team that you've become, like Tim, you've proven that you can play a key role in the organization's future. To protect that bright future, it's clear we need to do what it takes to help you be autonomous, to create the bright future that you can imagine. And so that to help you do that, there's no one better to do that than Tim. And there's no team more deserving of that investment than you. Tim's enhancement of the management team demonstrates how he can help you grow as individuals as well as a team, which makes me very excited about our organization's ability to innovate in your capable hands. And that future starts now. And on that exciting note, I'll leave you to make it happen. And I can't wait to see your showcase. Well, she said it with far more fluidity than I actually read it. And it just came out as one stream of resourcefulness. And it was a straight brain dump. It was delivered with resonance and certainty and without fear. So this is just one example of leading with a light touch, signaling pride in the team, rather than Stacey being concerned that her team may start underperforming and rebel against her replacement. She's turned it round into inspiring them to step up, to justify her faith in them and deliver their shared vision for the organisation. I hope you were able to see, as I was reading it, the elements, the messages, the signals that she was sending that were hidden in what she was actually saying. So the powerful elements in Stacey's message ensure that both Tim feels valued and the team, rather than feeling demoted at losing Stacey, feel inspired to be working with Tim. And the message focuses on Tim's appointment as an investment, demonstrating the organisation's faith in their maturity. Because, I mean, Tim is a very senior bloke and he's got lots of skills. He's actually helped the management team develop, and she's enabled them to see it as an elevation in status as opposed to a demotion. So it takes her attention away from being insecure and focuses them on their responsibility to deliver. So I asked her how she felt, and she said, well, after she'd said it, it seemed really obvious. And I could tell from the way that she delivered that message, but I wanted her to register this salutary moment. She said, I feel like I belong, such a big shift, and that I fill the shoes of my role. And how different is that from the Stacey that made the call? And when I said that to her, she said, oh my God, the difference between victim and victor of fear, from being totally uncertain to being totally certain. And she said, after I've said it, it sounds so obvious, but I guess that applied to the wheel. And she sounded very relieved and pretty happy and told me how grateful she felt, which is always lovely. And then she was ready to have her day. And in response to have a great day, the pleasing thing was, I'm sure to. So she started her day taking that resourceful state with her, which made me feel pretty relieved, I can tell you. So we've taken Stacey from problem to solution by using a mixture of coaching and mentoring skills to get Stacey to formulate her problem clearly and simply in a way which enabled her to solve it in a structured way far more easily. She'd identified the criteria that she needed to fit, and she looked at the 4 levels of learning for the one that best fits their ability to use it at that moment. And we've seen how the talent of people is very, can be leveraged so that they perform better and get better results through others. And the most powerful is leveraging trust. It's a great mindset for a leader to have, to trust the people that they have the resources within them, that when you can bring them out, they can achieve amazing things. Well, This call with Stacey lasted a little over 20 minutes, and it's taken considerably longer than 20 minutes to analyze it with you. And I mention this because your time with your people is precious. Every communication you make or don't make will ripple through your organization, and it will change its culture in some way, either to reinforce it or to exacerbate problems that are already there. So you always want to be aware of the power of your communication and to use it consciously and responsibly, because even no communication is some communication, and it can have disastrous effects or it can have very positive effects. Crafting communication is the secret to leading with a light touch and creating a culture in which people thrive. It is vital to you delivering your shared vision of the future. And basically, that's what I help leaders do. I work through them to create a culture in which people thrive and are inspired to deliver their shared vision. And if you'd like me to help you deliver your vision, as I've helped many leaders for more than 2 decades, you could type this into your address bar and just contact me that way, and I'd be very happy to spend an hour with you if I think I can help you. And that's your special invitation to see how I can help you in the way that I've helped Stacey in this call that I've shared with you. So I hope you've enjoyed that. I hope it hasn't been too rabbit in the headlights, and I would welcome any questions that you might have.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Joy, for delivering today's webinar. It's been very educating and very engaging. And yeah, you've shared a really interesting case study, so Stacey's case study. So thank you, Casey, for allowing Joy to share that today. Has anybody got any questions that they would like to ask? Okay. I'm going to ask one question, Joy. So do you feel people have the attitude and skill to deliver their business strategy?
That's a very, very big question, a very good question. Now, many companies don't have what I would call a proper business strategy. You will be really surprised. Even large companies, they don't always have the clarity of business strategy that I would have expected them to have to be able to anticipate and take advantage of the future. But those who do have a well-formed business strategy, it all depends on whether the strategy has been communicated properly to the people who work there and to all their stakeholders, including their suppliers and their customers. Excuse me. I can give you an example. I was once in the lobby area waiting to go into a potential client to be interviewed by this very senior member of the organization. And this was a multinational corporation. And in the lobby, on the wall, was their mission, vision, and their values. And I paid attention to this. I actually knew it from, I'd done some research beforehand. And when I went up to see him, he was in, I said, so how do you see the mission, vision, and values of the company? And he struggled and he said, oh yes, oh, wait a minute now. Now he must have seen that every day that he walked into that building, which was pretty much when it wasn't overseas, every day he walked into that building, and it wasn't front and center of his mind. And that to me demonstrates an example of where a company has gone to all of the trouble to develop a strategy and a mission, vision, and values, and they have failed singly to share it with their people. And it's no good on a wall if it's not in people's hearts and their minds. It's got to be front and center of everybody's minds to be able for it to be delivering. It's just like if you're going nowhere in particular, that's where you'll end up. Or is it if you're going if you're going nowhere, all roads lead there. And so it's very important that business strategy isn't a thing on its own, that it lives as a living, breathing thing within everybody in the company, from the top right to the very bottom, because the people are the lifeblood of the company. It makes sense that if they see something happening, they can look at it as being consistent with the company's strategy or inconsistent with the company's strategy. And if it's inconsistent, they need to do something about it. And if it's consistent, then they can use it and progress forward. And if they're not sure, they can ask or they can talk about it. That would be my view. So in summary, few people have got what I call a strategy in their hearts and minds, but those that do are very clear and they know where they're going. And in general, they're the ones who succeed. I hope that wasn't too long an answer.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Joy. Okay, just going to move over to the next slide. So that again has got Joy's website address there. And she's mentioned there's a link to fill out a little form.
It's just like an ordinary contact form. If you just put on there, if you refer to this talk, or alternatively, if you want to, I'll set up an inbox box, which is tvcc@workingwithjoy. Then you can email me directly, and I will certainly pay attention to that.
Fantastic. And what about LinkedIn, Joy?
Yes, I'm Joy Ainley.
Yeah.
Yes, on LinkedIn. So please have a look there. Nothing very exciting, I'm afraid. I'm very sparsely reflected there. You can see the testimonials that people have written very kindly for me, but I normally rely on word of mouth and spend time talking to people rather than brandishing things on the website. So I'd be very happy to talk to you.
Great.
If there is something that you'd like to discuss, or there's a problem that I can help nudge you in the right direction.
That's great. Thank you. Okay, any questions, anybody?
Oh, come on, you must have some.
Any questions, or as Joy mentioned, please complete the box on her website with any questions, and link with Joy on LinkedIn. So Joy Ainley from Working with Joy. Working with Joy. How did I get that wrong? You're my member as well. So
no problem.
Okay, right. Thank you again, Joy.
It's a pleasure.
Great webinar today. As I've mentioned at the beginning and in the middle, the webinar was recorded or has been recorded, so you can listen to it again. So great, thank you. Okay, so this is back to a chamber slide now. So this is the Thames Valley Chamber membership model. It shows how each tier is designed to attract a business depending on the level of exposure they wish to gain, as well as savings that can be made. So there's lots of benefits and opportunities we provide. As you can see, there's lots of different membership tiers, and you can choose the one that you would like to join. So if you are interested, or if you have any questions about your membership or the membership, then the details or the link to the website is there on the right corner of the page. So yeah, contact us via the website. Okay, so the Thames Valley Chamber has launched a business continuity toolkit, which is aimed at ensuring you've got access to a single portal. So this is a great way to receive information, guidance around the current situation of COVID-19. So we've got a business guidance hub, which has got some really interesting links in there and relevant links in there, which you may want to follow to get the answers that you're looking for. So I would like to say thank you again to Joy for delivering today's webinar. As I mentioned, it's been very engaging and educating. So thank you very much.
It's my pleasure. Thank you. And thank you for being a wonderful host.
Oh, thank you. It's been my pleasure. So it's been fantastic working with you on this. And yeah, so that's my contact details there. Also Joy's website address. And yeah, any questions, send them through to us. Daniela says, thank you, Joy. Thank you, Daniela, for listening in.
Yes, thank you, Daniela.
And all the other delegates that have tuned in today. So that's great. Thank you very much. Joy, anything else that you'd like to say?
I think you've covered everything, and thank you
Fantastic.
again for your hosting, and thank you for all attending, everyone, and for your questions.
Thank you very much. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.